The rain didn't just fall, it attacked. It slashed through the night, soaking Eli's clothes, his backpack, his very soul, as he stumbled down the cracked sidewalk of Maplewood Lane. His father's final words still burned in his ears. "No son of mine will live like that." Eli was 19, barely out of high school, and now homeless in the small town of Willow Creek, Oregon. The streetlights flickered, casting jagged shadows on the pavement, as if the world itself was unsure whether to light his way or abandon him to the dark. His sneakers squelched with every step, the cold seeping into his bones, but it was the ache in his chest that hurt most, the raw, jagged wound of being disowned for who he loved. He'd known the risks, coming out in a town like Willow Creek, where church suppers and Friday night football defined life, was like painting a target on his back. But he hadn't expected this. Not the shouting, not the ultimatum, not the door slamming shut behind him as his mother's sobs echoed from the living room. He'd stood on the porch for a moment, hoping they'd call him back, but the only sound was the rain hammering the roof. Now, with nowhere to go, Eli clutched his backpack tighter. Inside were a few clothes, a dog-eared copy of The Great Gatsby, and a photo of him and Caleb at the county fair last summer, laughing under the Ferris wheel. Caleb. The thought of him was a flicker of warmth in the storm. They'd met in art class, bonding over charcoal sketches and whispered dreams of escaping this town. Caleb was the only one who'd ever seen Eli for who he was. Not the pastor's son, not the quiet kid who mowed lawns for extra cash, but Eli, the boy who loved fiercely and feared he'd never be enough. His phone buzzed in his pocket, the screen cracked but still glowing. A text from Caleb. "Where are you? I'm coming to get you." Eli's fingers trembled as he typed a reply. "Corner of Maplewood and 5th. Hurry." He didn't know how Caleb knew something was wrong. Maybe it was the way Eli's voice had shaken when he called earlier, or maybe it was just the way Caleb always seemed to sense when Eli needed him. Headlights cut through the rain, and Eli's heart leaped. A beat-up blue pickup truck pulled up, its wipers slapping furiously. Caleb leaned across the passenger seat, pushing the door open. "Get in, you idiot," he called, his voice soft but urgent. Eli didn't hesitate. He climbed in, dripping water onto the cracked leather seat, and for the first time that night he felt like he could breathe. "You okay?" Caleb asked, his blue eyes scanning Eli's face. His curly blonde hair was damp from the rain, and his flannel shirt smelled faintly of cedar and paint. Eli wanted to say something, anything, but the words caught in his throat. Instead, he shook his head, and Caleb reached over, squeezing his hand. "You don't have to talk yet. Let's get you dry." The truck rumbled through the empty streets, the radio playing a faint country tune that neither of them really listened to. Eli stared out the window, watching the town blur past. Mrs. Henderson's diner, the old movie theater, the church where his father preached fire and brimstone every Sunday. It all felt like a life that no longer belonged to him. Caleb lived in a small house on the edge of town, a rental he shared with his older sister, Mara, who was away at college. The house was modest but warm, with mismatched furniture and a porch that creaked underfoot. When they pulled into the driveway, Caleb killed the engine and turned to Eli. "You're staying here tonight. No arguments." Eli nodded, too exhausted to protest. Inside, the house smelled of coffee and lavender, a stark contrast to the sterile cleanliness of his parents' home. Caleb handed him a towel and a pair of dry sweatpants, pointing him toward the bathroom. "Shower. I'll make tea." Under the hot water, Eli let the tears come. They mixed with the steam, silent and unstoppable, as he scrubbed away the rain and the pain of his father's words. He thought of his mother, who hadn't said a word as his father cast him out. He thought of the years he'd spent hiding, pretending, praying to be someone else. And he thought of Caleb, who'd never asked him to be anything but himself. When he emerged, wrapped in Caleb's 2 big sweatpants and a hoodie, he found Caleb in the kitchen, stirring honey into 2 mugs of chamomile tea. The sight of him, focused, sleeves rolled up, humming softly, made Eli's chest ache in a different way. This was what home was supposed to feel like, wasn't it? Not judgment, not fear, but this quiet, steady warmth. "Sit," Caleb said, sliding a mug across the counter. Eli obeyed, wrapping his hands around the warm ceramic. For a moment, they sat in silence, the only sound the patter of rain against the windows. "I told them," Eli said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "About us. About me." Caleb's eyes softened, but there was a flicker of anger there too. Not at Eli, but at the world that had hurt him. "And they kicked me out." Eli's voice cracked. "Dad said I was a disgrace. Mom just cried." Caleb reached across the counter, his hand finding Eli's again. "You're not a disgrace. You're the bravest person I know." Eli wanted to believe him, but the weight of his father's words pressed down on him, heavy as the rain outside. "I don't know what to do now," he admitted. "I have nowhere to go." Caleb's grip tightened. "You have me, and you have this place. It's not much, but it's yours for as long as you need it." Eli looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something he hadn't let himself hope for. A future. Not just a night of shelter, but a life where he could be himself unapologetically. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. "Thanks," Eli whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "For everything." Caleb smiled, a small, crooked thing that made Eli's heart skip. "Don't thank me yet. You haven't tried my cooking." Eli laughed, a shaky sound that felt like a release. For the first time that night, he believed he might be okay. The storm outside raged on, but here, in this tiny kitchen with Caleb, he'd found something stronger than the rain. A first glimpse of home. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the kitchen window, painting the worn linoleum floor in shades of gold. Eli woke on the couch, wrapped in a quilt that smelled faintly of lavender, his body stiff from the night before. For a moment, he forgot where he was, forgot the rain and the shouting and the door slamming shut. Then it all came rushing back, and his chest tightened. Caleb was already up, flipping pancakes in the kitchen, the sizzle of batter mixing with the soft hum of a folk song on the radio. He wore a faded t-shirt and jeans, his hair a mess of curls that caught the light. "Morning," he said, glancing over with a grin. "Hope you like pancakes. They're my specialty." Eli managed a small smile, pulling the quilt tighter around his shoulders. "Smells good." "Better than good," Caleb said, sliding a plate across the counter. "These are life-changing." Eli took a bite, the sweetness of maple syrup grounding him in the moment. It was a small thing, but it felt like a gift, a reminder that life could still hold softness, even after everything. They ate in companionable silence, the clink of forks against plates a quiet rhythm. But beneath it, Eli felt the weight of the unknown pressing in. What now? Where would he go? Could he really stay here in Caleb's world without dragging him into the mess of his own? After breakfast, Caleb suggested they take a walk. "Clear your head," he said, tossing Eli a jacket. "The world looks different in the daylight." They wandered down a trail behind Caleb's house, a narrow path that wound through pines and opened onto a small clearing overlooking the Willamette River. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and cedar. Eli's sneakers crunched on the gravel, and for the first time in hours, he felt like he could breathe. "Tell me something," Caleb said, kicking a pine cone off the path. What's the one thing you've always wanted to do but never told anyone? Eli hesitated. It was such a Caleb question, simple but piercing, like he could see right through Eli's walls. I want to paint, he admitted finally. Not just sketches, but real art. Big canvases, colors that make people feel something. I've always been too scared to try. Caleb nodded, like it was the most natural thing in the world. You should. You're good, Eli. I've seen your sketches. They're alive. Eli's cheeks warmed. He'd never shown anyone his drawings except Caleb, who'd found them one day in art class and spent an hour asking questions about every line. What about you? Eli asked, deflecting. What's your secret dream? Caleb grinned, looking out at the river. I want to open a bookstore, not one of those chain ones, but a little place with creaky floors and a cat that sleeps on the counter. Somewhere people can come and just be. Eli could see it. Caleb surrounded by books, recommending poetry to strangers, his laughter filling the space. It was so perfectly him. You'd be good at that, Eli said softly. They sat on a fallen log, the river sparkling below. For a moment, it was just them. The world quiet except for the rustle of leaves and the distant rush of water. Eli wanted to freeze this moment, to hold onto it before reality came crashing back. But reality didn't wait. That afternoon, Eli's phone buzzed with a message from his sister, Hannah, who was away at college in Portland. Dad told me what happened. Are you okay? Where are you? Eli's fingers hovered over the screen. He wanted to tell her everything, but the shame of being cast out stopped him. He typed a quick reply, I'm safe, with a friend. I'll call soon. Caleb noticed the shift in Eli's mood. Your sister? He guessed, leaning against the counter as Eli set the phone down. Yeah, Eli said. She's the only one who might get it. But I don't know how to tell her I'm this. He gestured vaguely at himself, as if he could sum up his entire existence in a single motion. You don't have to explain yourself to anyone, Caleb said firmly. Not Hannah, not your parents, not the whole damn town. You're enough. Eli wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at him. What if Hannah reacted like their parents? What if Caleb got tired of him, of the baggage he carried? He pushed the thoughts down, focusing on the warmth of Caleb's voice, the way his hand brushed Eli's arm as he passed by. That evening, they sat on the porch, sharing a blanket as the sky turned pink and gold. Caleb talked about his sister, Mara, who'd be back in a few weeks, and how she'd probably adopt Eli on the spot. Eli laughed, but his mind kept drifting to the future. He couldn't stay on Caleb's couch forever. He needed a plan, a job, a place, a life. As if reading his mind, Caleb said, I meant what I said last night. You can stay here as long as you need. We'll figure it out together. Eli's throat tightened. He didn't know how to thank Caleb, how to explain what this meant. So instead, he leaned his head against Caleb's shoulder, letting the warmth of the moment anchor him. For now, it was enough. The days blurred into a fragile routine. Eli woke each morning to the smell of coffee and Caleb's off-key singing in the kitchen. They'd eat breakfast together, then head to their part-time jobs. Caleb at the local bookstore, Eli at a hardware store on Main Street. The work was mind-numbing, stacking nails and sorting screws, but it gave Eli a paycheck and a distraction from the ache in his chest. Willow Creek wasn't kind to outsiders, and Eli felt like one now. Whispers followed him at the store, glances from customers who knew his father's sermons. He overheard Mrs. Carter, the town gossip, muttering about the pastor's boy gone astray. Each word was a pinprick, but Eli kept his head down, refusing to let them see him break. Caleb was his anchor. Every evening, they'd sit on the porch or sprawl on the living room floor, sketching or reading or just talking. Caleb had a way of making the world feel smaller, safer. One night, he pulled out a canvas and paints, shoving them toward Eli. "No excuses," he said. "Paint something." Eli hesitated, his fingers itching to create but paralyzed by fear. What if it wasn't good enough? What if he wasn't? But Caleb's steady gaze gave him courage. He dipped the brush in crimson and let it glide across the canvas, losing himself in the motion. Hours later, he stepped back to see a stormy sky, jagged with lightning, and two figures holding hands beneath it. It was raw, imperfect, but it was his. Caleb's eyes lit up. "Told you," he said, nudging Eli's shoulder. "You're an artist." Eli's cheeks burned, but pride swelled in his chest. For the first time, he felt like he could be more than the pastor's son, more than the boy who'd been thrown out. He could be Eli, the artist, the dreamer, the boy who loved Caleb and was loved in return. But the world outside Caleb's house wasn't so forgiving. One afternoon, Eli was restocking shelves when his father walked into the hardware store. The air seemed to thicken, the fluorescent lights too bright. Pastor Daniel's face was a mask of stone, his eyes narrowing as they landed on Eli. "Elijah," he said, his voice low but sharp enough to cut. "We need to talk." Eli's stomach churned. He wanted to run, to hide, but there was nowhere to go. "What's there to say?" he asked, his voice steadier than he felt. "You're living in sin," his father said, stepping closer. "You can still come home. Repent. Leave that boy." The word boy dripped with venom, and Eli's hands clenched into fists. "His name is Caleb," he said, his voice shaking with anger. "And I'm not coming back. Not if it means pretending to be someone I'm not." His father's face darkened. "You're choosing hell over your family." Eli's throat burned, but he held his father's gaze. "I'm choosing myself." Pastor Daniel turned and walked out, leaving Eli trembling in the aisle. The rest of the shift passed in a blur, the weight of his father's words settling like a stone in his chest. When he got back to Caleb's, he didn't mention it, but Caleb seemed to sense something was wrong. He didn't push, just handed Eli a mug of tea and sat close, their knees brushing under the blanket. That night, Eli couldn't sleep. He lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying his father's words. "You're choosing hell." Was he? Or was hell the life he'd lived before, hiding who he was, suffocating under the weight of expectations? He thought of Caleb's laugh, his steady hands, the way he made Eli feel like he was enough. That didn't feel like hell, felt like salvation. The next day, Eli called Hannah. Her voice was warm but worried when she answered. "Eli, I've been freaking out. Are you okay?" He told her everything, the fight, the rain, Caleb's house. He braced for judgment, but instead, Hannah said, "I'm proud of you, and I'm sorry Mom and Dad are being like this. You don't deserve it." Tears pricked Eli's eyes. "You're not ashamed of me?" "Never," she said fiercely. "You're my brother, and if you love this Caleb guy, he must be pretty great." Eli laughed, relief flooding him. "He is." Hannah promised to visit soon, and when Eli hung up, he felt lighter, like a piece of his old life had been stitched back into place. He told Caleb about the call, and Caleb's face lit up. "See? Not everyone's against you." Eli wanted to believe it, but the town's judgment loomed large. He knew the whispers would only grow louder, and he wondered how long he and Caleb could hold onto this fragile piece before the world tried to tear it apart. Weeks passed, and Eli began to find his footing. He picked up extra shifts at the hardware store, saving every penny for a future he couldn't yet see. Caleb's house became a sanctuary, filled with small rituals. Morning coffee, evening sketches, Late night talks about everything and nothing. But the outside world kept intruding. Graffiti appeared on Caleb's mailbox one night, a ugly slur scrawled in red spray paint. Eli scrubbed it off until his hands ached, but the memory of it lingered. Caleb took it in stride, joking that it gave the mailbox character, but Eli saw the tightness in his jaw. "People are idiots," Caleb said, tossing the sponge into a bucket. "Doesn't mean they're right." Eli nodded, but the incident shook him. It was a reminder that Willow Creek wasn't safe. Not for them. He started noticing the stares more, the way conversations hushed when he and Caleb walked into the diner together. He hated how it made him second-guess every touch, every glance. One evening, Caleb suggested they go to Portland for the weekend. "Mara's got a couch we can crash on," he said. "And the city's different. You'll see." Eli agreed, desperate for a break from the suffocating weight of Willow Creek. They drove 2 hours to Portland, the city unfolding in a blur of lights and noise. Mara's apartment was small but vibrant, with books stacked on every surface and fairy lights strung across the walls. She greeted Eli with a hug, her dark hair pulled into a messy bun. "So you're the guy my brother won't shut up about," she teased, making Eli blush. Portland felt like a different world. They wandered through Powell's Books, got coffee at a queer-owned cafe, and walked along the waterfront, holding hands without fear of judgment. For the first time, Eli felt free, not just to love Caleb, but to be himself. He bought a small sketchbook and filled it with drawings of the city, of Caleb laughing, of moments he wanted to keep forever. On Saturday night, Mara took them to a local open mic at a bar called The Haven, a cozy spot with rainbow flags and a crowd that cheered for everyone. Caleb nudged Eli toward the stage. "Read something," he said, "or show one of your sketches." Eli's stomach twisted. "I can't." "You can," Caleb said, his voice steady. "You're braver than you think." Heart pounding, Eli stepped onto the stage, clutching his sketchbook. He held up a drawing of the stormy night he'd been cast out, the two figures under the umbrella. His voice shook as he described it. Not just the image, but what it meant. Loss, love, finding home. The crowd listened, rapt, and when he finished, they clapped, some even standing. A stranger in a leather jacket called out, "That's beautiful, man." Eli returned to his seat, his face burning but his heart soaring. Caleb pulled him into a hug, whispering, "I'm so proud of you." For the first time, Eli felt like his art, his story mattered. But the high didn't last. Back in Willow Creek, tensions simmered. Eli's father had started preaching about saving lost souls. His sermons pointedly aimed at Eli. Word got around, and soon, customers at the hardware store stopped asking for Eli's help. His boss, Mr. Thompson, pulled him aside one day. "You're a good worker, Eli, but people are talking. I can't afford to lose business." Eli's heart sank. "Are you firing me?" "Not yet," Mr. Thompson said, looking uncomfortable. "But keep your head down, okay?" That night, Eli told Caleb everything. "I'm dragging you down," he said, his voice breaking. "This town, they'll never let us be." Caleb's eyes flashed with defiance. "Then we leave. We make our own life somewhere else." Eli stared at him, the idea both thrilling and terrifying. "Leave? Just like that?" "Not just like that," Caleb said. "We plan. We save. We go somewhere we can be ourselves. Portland, Seattle, anywhere but here." Eli wanted to believe it was possible, but fear held him back. What if they failed? What if he wasn't enough for Caleb, for the world? But as he looked into Caleb's eyes, he saw something stronger than doubt. Hope, fierce and unyielding. Maybe, just maybe, they could build something new. The idea of leaving Willow Creek took root, growing stronger with each passing day. Eli and Caleb started making plans. Small at first, like checking apartment listings in Portland and calculating how much they'd need to save. Eli took on extra shifts, even picking up odd jobs like painting fences or cleaning gutters. Caleb started selling his old vinyl records online, every dollar a step toward freedom. But Willow Creek wasn't done with them. One Sunday, Eli's father held a special service at the church, a prayer for wayward souls. Eli didn't attend, but the news spread like wildfire. People stopped him on the street, offering pity or judgment disguised as concern. "Your father just wants what's best," Mrs. Carter said, her smile sharp as a blade. Eli walked away, his hands shaking. Caleb was furious when he heard. "They don't get to define you," he said, pacing the living room. "We're getting out of here. Soon." Eli nodded, but doubt gnawed at him. Leaving meant abandoning any hope of reconciling with his parents, of ever being part of his family again. He thought of his mother's face, her silence as his father cast him out. Could he really walk away forever? One evening, Eli found a letter slipped under Caleb's door. It was from his mother, written in her neat, looping handwriting. "Elijah, I'm sorry. I don't know how to fix this, but I love you. Please be safe." There was no return address, no invitation to come home. It was a goodbye, soft and final. Eli cried that night, curled up on the couch with Caleb's arms around him. "She loves me," he whispered, "but not enough to fight for me." Caleb held him tighter. "I'll fight for you, always." The next day, Eli threw himself into his art. He painted furiously, canvases filled with storms and sunlight, heartbreak and hope. Caleb hung them around the house, turning the small space into a gallery of Eli's soul. "You're going to show these someday," Caleb said, "in a real gallery with people who get it." Eli laughed, but the idea sparked something in him. He started dreaming bigger, not just of leaving, but of building a life where he could create, where he and Caleb could thrive. They saved every penny, their plan taking shape. A small apartment in Portland, a fresh start. But trouble came faster than they expected. One night, a brick crashed through Caleb's living room window, shattering glass across the floor. A note was tied to it, scrawled in angry capitals. "Freaks don't belong here." Eli's heart pounded as they swept up the glass, the silence between them heavy with fear. "We can't stay," Caleb said, his voice low but resolute. "Not after this." Eli nodded, his throat tight. "When?" "Soon," Caleb said. "We've got enough for a deposit. Mara says we can stay with her until we find a place." The decision was made, but the weight of it lingered. Eli couldn't shake the feeling that he was running away, that he was letting Willow Creek win. But as he looked at Caleb, cleaning up the glass with steady hands, he realized something. This wasn't running. It was choosing a life, a love, a future. They spent the next week packing, sorting through what to keep and what to leave behind. Eli kept his sketchbooks, the photo from the county fair, and a single letter from his mother. Everything else felt like a weight he was ready to let go. On their last night in Willow Creek, they sat on the porch watching the stars. Eli leaned against Caleb, the warmth of his body a reminder of everything they'd built together. "Are we doing the right thing?" Eli asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Caleb kissed his forehead. "We're doing the only thing. We're choosing us." Eli closed his eyes, letting the words sink in. For the first time, he felt like he was running toward something, not away. Tomorrow, they'd leave Willow Creek behind, carrying only what mattered, each other. The move to Portland was chaotic but exhilarating. Mara helped them load Caleb's truck with boxes, her laughter cutting through the tension. "You two are going to take this city by storm," she said, winking at Eli. He hoped she was right. Their new apartment was tiny, a one-bedroom with creaky floors and a view of a brick wall. But it was theirs. They painted the walls a soft blue, hung Eli's canvases, and filled the space with second-hand furniture. Every night, they fell asleep tangled together, the city's hum a lullaby outside their window. Eli found a job at an art supply store, where his co-workers didn't care who he loved. Caleb got hired at a small bookstore, just like he'd dreamed, and spent his days recommending novels to curious customers. They built a life, piece by piece, coffee dates, late-night walks, quiet moments sketching side by side. But the past didn't vanish. Eli still dreamed of his father's voice, his mother's silence. Some nights he woke with a start, convinced he was back in the rain, alone. Caleb was always there, his arms steady, his voice soft. "You're home," he'd whisper, and Eli would believe him. One day, Eli got a call from Hannah. She was in Portland for a conference and wanted to meet. They chose a cafe near the waterfront, its windows fogged with steam. Hannah hugged him tightly, her eyes bright with tears. "You look happy," she said, and Eli realized she was right. He told her about the apartment, about his art, about Caleb. She listened, her smile growing. "I want to meet him," she said. "Anyone who makes my brother this happy is family." That evening, Caleb joined them, and the three of them laughed over coffee and pastries, the conversation easy and warm. Hannah didn't flinch when Eli mentioned their plans to visit a local pride event, didn't hesitate when Caleb reached for Eli's hand. It was a small thing, but it felt like a victory. Months later, Eli got an email from a local gallery. They'd seen his work at the Havens open mic and wanted to feature his paintings in a group show. Eli stared at the screen, disbelief giving way to joy. Caleb hooped, lifting him off the ground in a hug. "I told you," he said. "You're an artist." The night of the show, Eli stood in the gallery, his heart pounding as strangers admired his work. His paintings, storms and sunlight, love and loss, told his story, raw and unfiltered. Caleb stood beside him, his hand a steady anchor. "This is just the beginning," he whispered. Eli looked at him, at the life they'd built, and felt a truth settle deep in his bones. Home wasn't a place, not really. It was Caleb's laugh, his steady presence, the way he made Eli feel seen. It was the courage to be himself, to love without fear, to create without shame. As they left the gallery, hand in hand, Portland's lights sparkled around them. Eli thought of that rainy night in Willow Creek, when he'd thought he'd lost everything. He hadn't. He'd found something better, a love that gave him shelter, a life that felt like home.